So on that note, what is your answer, your personal answer to the question, what is money?
I wish I had only one for you. The thing, okay, I'll say this first, that the most interesting thing for me on this almost 3-year journey now doing the podcast, the What is Money show, asking this question to, I don't know how many, we've had 360 something episodes, definitely over 100 guests. You know, a lot of the episodes are long form series, so we have the same guest over and over, but I'd say we've got to be over 100 guests. And the fact that there are so many different answers to that question that make sense in certain contexts, it's like asking one of these other profound questions, like, you know, what is truth? What is justice? What is beauty? What is love? You know, you would think that these very essential terms that we use would have very clear definitions that might be your intuitive position. It's like, well, of course we should know what truth is. You know, it's like one of the most important things in the world where we talk about it all the time. But then when you actually get into it and you try to define truth, you see that philosophers have been debating it for many, many centuries, and it continues to be a debate. And there's different forms of truth, right? There's pragmatic truths and transcendental truth, et cetera, et cetera. So money, for some reason, is one of those terms, apparently, one of these very potent, essential terms. You know, it's an essential tool, obviously. Every trading society has money or some form of money. You could also say that money is more of an attribute, right, than necessarily a thing.
Yeah, an adjective is what we said in the last talk we had.
Like an adjective, right? Because every asset that is traded in a marketplace has some degree of moneyness, which is commensurate with its liquidity. And the thing that has the most moneyness is the thing we call money, basically. So the very interesting realization that I've had or am having still is how indispensable, let's say insufficient language is, first of all, for describing this complex, fluid world continuum that we all inhabit. You know, we're using these little discrete data packets called words and trying to map it onto this fluid domain we call reality. So it's insufficient, yet it's also indispensable, and that it is the best tool we have for, well, thinking, communicating, rationalizing, reflecting, you know, calculating, etc. So that's been my big takeaway, I guess, from doing the show. Not takeaway. It's nothing to take away. It's something I'm still thinking about. It's like, how do you describe the nature of language itself? And it's taken me into a lot of rabbit holes. Now, to answer your question a little more directly, I still think the most useful conception of money is as a storehouse or reservoir of time. You know, you might say human time, you might say lifetime. And it's not just money, though. It's really capital. All right, capital is the result of humans spending time, effort, and energy to create things that amplify the productivity of others or allow future consumption for themselves or other people. So all capital is kind of like a stored form of human time. But then money is just the form of capital that is most liquid, most tradable. And so it becomes a very close reflection of time. And you see that in just people's day-to-day use of money, right? And that you go to work, you trade time for money, and then you take that money back into the marketplace and you trade that money for the time of others. So people will serve you at the restaurant or building you a house or making you shoes or whatever the thing is. So I think there's a lot of intuitive value in framing it as time. And then I think it's also very useful for explicating the malevolent nature of central banking. Where you're like, okay, if there's a currency counterfeiting monopoly, everyone's forced to use this stuff. They're stealing purchasing power through arbitrarily inflating the money supply. Well, what does that equate to if money is time? Okay, it's systematic time theft, right? People are having their time stolen systematically with every dollar printed. So, I guess that is still the answer that I lean on the most. I also think, obviously Saylor bringing this whole perspective of money as energy to the table is a big deal, because you could equally argue money is time, money is energy, or as we've often said too, money is power, right? And power is a product of time and energy, right? I think power is the capacity to move energy over time, right? Or perform work over time, something like that in a physics sense. So again, you ask this question, what is money? And you end up in very fundamental domains like physics and, time. Like, what is time? Time's probably the most mysterious thing in the universe. So it's maybe not useful from like a very practical standpoint to say money is time, but I think it's very useful from a philosophical standpoint and giving people somewhat of an intuitive explanatory framework to deal with this very abstract, mysterious notion.